I just want to say a hearty welcome to my kitchen. It is an absolute honor. I'm so excited to have Arabella in the house, an amazing plant-based chef. It's really dear to my heart because over the years, having gone through various health issues, I actually landed up going towards plant-based food and eating, and really love it. So as a yoga teacher, my offerings are plant-based when I have my retreats, and I'm so excited. Just to note, everybody, Arabella is my chef this year for my end of the year retreat. So this is a great honor. Those of you who are interested, just send me a WhatsApp. There are still 4 spots available. So Arabella, thank you for joining me in my kitchen tonight. Lovely to have you here.
It's so good. It's so good to be here with you, and to be able to have a conversation around my absolute favorite thing, and
Yay.
to connect again before we make magic together.
Love that. Love that, love that. So, start us off and just, before we go get into sort of all the meaty issues of plant-based food, but give us a little sort of background of where you got started, just to place it for us.
So I was actually studying, and I was studying environmental history and feminist. I was doing a feminism course, and I was ambushed and put into a lecture hall, and we had to watch Earthlings, which is one of the most traumatic movies you can watch about the food industry. So I was catapulted into an awareness of these things that I maybe wasn't searching for, but as soon as I'd watched that, I couldn't touch meat, and that was 10 years ago now. And I also at the same time was having this trying to understand what I wanted to do, and food kept coming back into my field of vision. And I was really really lucky to grow up with a mother who had a very strong intuitive understanding of what food could do for her children. We all had, lots of allergies and lots of sicknesses and things, and she kept getting ushered towards doctors' offices and antibiotics and all of these cures. And she healed all of that with food for us. And this was, before all of this was mainstream and there was so much information about it. Anyway, so I was in a home with a lot of awareness around the food that we ate. Granted, back then I was, a child trying to find any sweet in the house because I was like, this is boring and this doesn't make sense. But now I'll get back to that, this whole notion of how we've been conditioned to see our food. But I then went to chef school, and I was laughed at the whole way through chef school because they were like, what do you mean you don't eat meat? That's ridiculous. It was obviously there were people thinking and talking about this, but it was very bizarre to my cohort of students that I wasn't eating meat. And I went through the whole process, and I went through the classical French training, which is very heavy on meat, dairy, and not a lot of information about the health side of food. And then I went on to work in the Mediterranean for a while, and I was just cooking. I had to cook meat, that's what everyone wanted. I was cooking a lot of seafood, I was cooking a lot of meat. And I guess it felt like this maybe it was a gradual wake up moment where I kept going for swims in the sea, and I was like, there's nothing in this ocean. It feels like I'm in a swimming pool. And I just was like, I can't, I'm done. I have to get out of, I was working on the yachts at the time. And I was like, I have to get out of this industry. It felt so excessive. There was so much waste. It was all about like abundance and wanting to have all of this food that then 80% of it got thrown away because it was more about like the gluttonous kind of aspect of just eating whatever people wanted, but not really connecting to it. So I left and I went to India, and that's where I learned about Ayurveda. And I spent time in Kerala, and I spent time with a doctor who I tried to sap as much of his knowledge as possible in the time that I was there for. And it kind of flipped everything I'd been taught at chef school on its head. You know, it was just it was all of a sudden about food being part of this wider system and a catalyst for healing. And I had constantly been searching for this idea of, you know, there's more to food than people just eating it. I kept wanting to tell stories to the guests on the boat, but, you know, you have to be like, here's your food, goodbye.
Stories at my retreat, love stories.
Yeah. Yeah. People, there's so much to share around food. And it was this, I mean, I started my career never wanting to be hands behind a wall, because I was like, there's other things that are involved in food, and that's why I didn't spend much time in restaurants, because I was like, it's too focused in on one aspect of it. And I had all this kind of stuff that I wanted to share. So I came back and I started trying to find out how I could cook plant-based food that was almost informed by the principles of Ayurveda in a way that I could help educate people about finding healing in their relationship with food, because there is so much disconnect, there is so much guilt, there is so much, there's obesity, there's malnourishment, and all of these things are rife. And I feel like the core is that people are disconnected to the potential that food holds, or the ability to help themselves using food.
Yeah. So I'm sure during that time when you worked in Kerala, it's also the connection of food, but it's also the medicinal value of understanding what nourishment and that we're getting for the body. What did you learn there in terms of that with the doctor there?
I guess it was more, with Ayurveda, when you understand that firstly, all bodies respond to food differently. All bodies have their own constitution. There's such simple answers and such simple remedies. And I think there was something quite phenomenal about at chef school. It's mainly about flavor and presentation, which I love. Those two are huge aspects of why I cook the way I do. But then there was also this element of like, if you add this to this, it can do a certain thing in your body, and it can shift something, and it can connect you to, the idea that you have to eat seasonal food and food that's grown in the region that you're in. Yeah. Where I am compared to someone in the US, Ayurvedically, that's going to look different because their context is going to be very different to mine. Yeah. So there was something it was like tactile, but it was also, it was quite, it gave a lot of agency, because all of a sudden I was being given, or I was maybe becoming aware that I had a lot of answers, and using this as a modality to heal myself or empower myself. That was liberating. And I am still, I got like the tip of the iceberg, this is something that is studied for years and years and years. And I can't claim that I am an expert at Ayurvedic food. I just know the base kind of foundations that just brought food to life.
Yeah. I hear you. When I went through my years of when I had to go through heavy treatment, I really looked at nutrition and food, because it was the thing that I knew I could have control. We all have control, and we choose to put what we're putting in our mouths, we're choosing to. No one's putting anything in your mouth. You are putting whatever you choose to eat, you are choosing to eat that. So, if anything, I thought, okay, well, let me be in charge of how I feed myself. And so I did I always liked healthy food. And I found myself leaning towards being more vegetarian. I still eat fish now and again, but as I went through treatments, I went off. I couldn't do dairy. I went off eggs. I went off chicken, and I never grew up eating much red meat, so it really wasn't hard. And I would make meals, but I have no. It's weird, now I make these amazing meals, but it was from being in India, and that's why I love this conversation, and going to an Ayurvedic clinic and eating the food there daily. I realized I came home and I would just start cooking, but I think that ingredient that was missing was the connection. I loved eating, I loved eating, but now I love the connection with the food,
Yeah.
and then making it, and actually it's much easier than I thought it would be. Literally whatever is in season, I'll buy, and happen to have a aubergine tonight because it was on my table, and I have spinach, and so you make something with that. But the connection that they taught me there, just eating the food. So I really understand what you're saying, and that was the ingredient that was missing. And then there's so much joy that you experience, and because of that, then your body experiences
Yeah.
the nourishment that comes
Yeah.
from
And it's an interesting thing because we are consuming food more than we ever have, yet we are cooking less than we ever have because we're consuming food through a screen. The rise of like the cooking show and food porn and all of these things that are so alluring because it's so satisfying to watch someone make a beautiful meal. But yet we are slaves to convenience and ordering food in, getting frozen goods. It's we as a species used to spend so much time spending time with the food before we actually ate it. And I've gone through a very interesting experience since I got COVID last year, and I lost my taste and smell for a long time. And that is all, it's all kind of worked itself out again since then. But there's, our senses are the connection to our food. And if we can't hone that sensitivity to be able to understand what it's doing, we use it as like a means to an end. There's no process involved. You just want it to be here and then in the mouth. There's no, the romance of what it is to, chop your vegetables, prep things, smell things cooking as they go. All of these are actually triggering your digestive system to get going before you put something in your mouth. So
exactly.
you think about your mouth watering when you smell something, or the connotations you have to like hearing vegetables being chopped or frying onions. All of these things are prepping our body for what's coming. And when now with a lack of cooking, it's just you get it, you eat it, and the digestive enzymes that were meant to be producing themselves while you were going through the process haven't developed. Your body's reacting to it in a very different way. So there's that disconnection. And there's the disconnect of, oh, it's a chore.
Yes.
When did that happen?
Yeah, when did that happen? Because it should be a joy, and it doesn't need to take long.
No.
Really, really doesn't. I actually copied two recipes because they always have. I just came back from India now, and they always have. I did a panchakarma for those of you that I'm just catching you up with what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks. It's an Ayurvedic detox program. The food is sublime there, and once a week they have a cooking demo, and so they give us recipes, and I just copied two of them tonight. I was amazed at, like, I mean, I cook similar to that, but it's simple. There was simple, three ingredients, so tasty. In 20 minutes, it's done. So it's coming back and helping people coming back to the joy and the connection. But you're so right. It's those 20 minutes of preparation are really important.
And also, I mean, you think about your ability to enjoy simple meals. Is we've also become so addicted to a lot of sugar, a lot of fat, a lot of salt, and so when things, it's I struggle with it. It's like the answers are so simple, yet convenience is essentially trying to make things simple for us, but it's actually doing the complete opposite. It's like killing our ability to adapt or to evolve or to be in relation to the environment around us or the people around us. You know, everyone's in front of a screen eating their Uber Eats and not engaging in the kitchen. And I feel so privileged to be able to have grown up in a kitchen like that. We were all helping. My mother always had a plan, and we were always, her little minions in there. But that's also the culture of food that's being severed by, the mass industrialization of everything in our food system. You want to buy something quick.
It even started, you say Uber Eats, but I mean, when was it? What decade was it? Was it I don't know if it was the 70s or the 80s, where it was TV meals. You had
Probably
your,
the 80s. Yeah.
70s, Michael saying, and people didn't sit at the dining room table anymore. And there's an importance in sitting at the dining room table, gathering together.
Yeah.
I live alone, so a lot of the time it might just be me, but then I make a joy out of it. One of the most important healing aspects I learned was, like, I really love being fed. I feel someone's, showing me a huge amount of love when you feed me. Predominantly because I had a disconnect with, I didn't have my mom cook. And so that's a nurturing element for me. So I had to learn how to cook when I was going through chemotherapy, because that was my healing. So bringing us together in this day and age, I mean, especially when we've come out of a really bizarre sort of separation with COVID and whatever. And like you say, we're connecting. And look, I'm eternally grateful that we're all sitting here. I feel like you're in my kitchen and it's live. Like, we've TV live. You could all unmute yourselves, interrupt me, and like add, whatever thought you have as we're chatting about this. But it is important to still gather, to come together and gather. And if you're alone, you make it a ritualistic thing. I mean, I land up putting on a podcast or my audiobooks. It's my favorite time. But I've got to do 20 minutes a day of that honing in.
And that's also something I've definitely noticed over the years. So because I avoided the restaurants, I tried to find a very particular, I guess, uncharted path. Well, I didn't know what I was trying to create, but I was just trying to find places where I could cook and engage with people. That was my main thing. I wanted to cook plant-based food. I wanted to engage with people, and I wanted to do it in, enriching spaces. And there's something so beautiful about being able to cook, and you create all of this and you put all your energy into something and then you eat it again. So it's like this beautiful cycle of the more energy you pour into it, the more it's going to enrich your body, the more you've become connected to the meal, and like you said, it can be 5 minutes, it can be 10 minutes, but you can taste the difference between roasted butternut that you roasted in your oven compared to roasted butternut that's been sitting in a plastic container in a fridge for 2 weeks, or maybe not 2 weeks, but you know what I mean. It's the prana. That's what they say in Ayurveda. There's nothing in there because there's no connection to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So there's this amazing energy exchange that you get when you do it for yourself, and I often say to people, it's a self-care practice. It's something, whatever you invest in it, you're going to get back.
Yeah.
But there's something, well, I guess it's, yeah, there are lots of things that are happening in this world that are pulling us away from these very basic principles. We prioritize work, we prioritize doing things that other people need us to do. People are eating lunch at their desks while they're working. That is like, that's the epitome of where we are at as a society, is like the work is more important. The food is just a means to an end.
Yeah. And the thing is, the food is your key to your health.
Yeah.
To me, it is, because it's the thing that you can choose to make, you can choose to eat,
No one's force feeding you. Like you said, you are.
and you have control. So you could take your power back. Um, Especially in a time where we really need to reconnect with our health and our bodies. And going back to the prana thing, that is the premise of Ayurveda. Is prana is life force. It means, so food that is, as fresh from the farm to the table has the most direct, powerful life force in it. So if you are, if you eat food that straight away is fresh, as opposed to, like Arabella said, is frozen, you've still got life force in it. Otherwise, the food is dead. And the packaged food is we actually eating. We'll end up eating the molecules of absorbing the molecules of the packaging and the plastic. There was a question going into so just continuing it, because I don't want to, otherwise I forget. So I see there's a question from Lisa. She says, how do we find these simple, nutritious food ideas, recipes? Share some ideas with fresh veggie produce. A starter to trying tasty meals. So just adding to that, Arabella.
I get there is more access to beautiful recipes. I mean, go onto Instagram and you see like the stuff that is being churned out on a regular basis with super simple recipes. I mean, my go-tos, just in terms of like simplicity and beautiful food that is packed with flavor, Jamie Oliver, Ottolenghi. Get one of those books and just make your way through that. Those men are really, it's phenomenal flavor. They focus on, seasonal produce, and they aren't complicated. I like that they kind of take classical things and make them very simple. And I mean, there's such an array of cookbooks focusing on healthy food, and I can't say I know where to start other than those two, because it's actually overwhelming with the amount of information. But it's almost like, instead of being Ottolenghi, Ottolenghi.
I think just write that name down in the chat. I'm familiar with it, but then it will just help them to. While we're doing that, Mike in the chat, can you please write down my email address, elaine@fusionvinyasa.com, just so that people, if they're interested in my yoga retreat, sorry, I'm just multitasking as we go along. So going back to the conversation, yes. So also on your, where you're at now, I know you've told me that you have in the past, and I think you still do, you offer nutritional courses, or share with us a little bit about that.
So I after I came back and I started Eat to Thrive. So Eat to Thrive is my business, and the intention with Eat to Thrive is to offer food experiences and services that provide beautiful, nourishing food, but also educate people about the food that they eat. So I did a lot of cooking classes, kind of experiential pop-up dining experiences, lots of retreats and things like that. And the whole idea about the food that I cook is I want people to think deeper about the food that they're eating, because also we connect to our ability to change behavior is very much linked to our emotional experience. We can see that, looking at data does not do much. We can see that, things are in disarray, but yet there's no connection to it. And so this is the idea of the food that I cook. And then I was also then went down a nutritional rabbit hole. So I went and I did a year of nutrition through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition based in New York. And I did, so you come out as a health coach, and it gave this phenomenal overview of all of the different philosophies around food, the way things have changed, and gave amazing insight into how to help people on an individual level to shift behavior, to think about food differently, to re-establish a healthier relationship with food. And it's very focused on, and I guess this is where I've brought the Ayurvedic concepts in, where it's focused on who you are, where you live, what work you do, what exercise you do, all of these things to try and help people create a more, I guess, mindful approach to food, and also to help be very practical with integrating positive behavior change into that. So it's essentially a 6-month course, and we go through understanding where the blocks are, what needs to change, and how then to do that, so that then you come out learning more about how to prep your meals for the week, certain skills in the kitchen, how to keep a food journal. Like, there are lots of little things that help kind of bring a lot of awareness to people's relationships with food that they've never really thought about. No, so it's all of these are just trying to draw awareness in, so that you can see where things need to be changed, or what you can bring more of into your understanding of your food.
Excellent. I mean, that's the key thing, as I've gone on my journeys, and as I've worked with private clients as well, everybody has a relationship with food. And we really have to establish what is our personal relationship with food, and how do we improve on it, or how do we establish joy, so that we can get the best out of it. So it's wonderful to have somebody like you to then lean towards, and with the knowledge and with the support, because like you said, you grew up with it, so it's part and parcel, and that joy was established. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, there's that disconnect, or often food became sort of weirdly the enemy.
Yes. Well, that's also what I find so it's sad, is that there's so much guilt around food, just the idea of like, oh, I'm indulging in something. That is immediately someone trying to justify doing something that they actually are feeling guilty about. And it's like this distorted idea that healthy food is really boring.
Yes.
And the things that we call treats are the things that are hurting us the most.
Absolutely.
And so there's this like psychological shift that also needs to happen, which takes time. And it also, being with a health coach, it helps you on like very gradual, tiny little changes that then in the end become a whole new perception of your relationship with food. But also through looking, if you see it as like a circle, and you've got all these spheres of your life, and you've got your relationships and your career and your spirituality or your exercise, all of these things, by going in through your relationship with food, you see how it transforms everything around it. And so it's a beautiful catalyst to kind of go in and go, let's observe this space. Let's understand how the dynamics are, my relationship to it, where I can adjust things, if I can adjust things, where are the blocks. And as you do that, I think that's where the change happens, is when you start feeling how different you feel. and then that ripples out into all the other areas of your life. And that's what I believe food does, is if we can like reestablish that connection, everything else will shift.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, and the thing is, it's to recognize that our relationship with food starts as a kid. So whatever you're sitting with now, where you are now, and your eating habits, or your joy or overeating or undereating, I don't know how many people eat perfectly normally. I
Yeah.
mean, if we are, if we all 100% honest with ourselves, like,
Yeah.
so I am a bit of an overeater, I've learned, and I really have to work at, like, you don't have to have a second helping all the time and eat till you sore, so that you're up till 3 o'clock in the morning with stomach ache, and then say, why did I do that? Like, I'm actually abusing my body. I might as well have just, had asked somebody to box me in the stomach. But where did it start? Like,
Yeah.
why do I have to have like, do I think food's going to go away? Am I going to be like, and it started, for me, the journey started with, like, don't have more, Elaine. As a
Yeah.
teenager, start going to the kitchen and I'd have more. Don't tell me not to do something. I'm
Yeah.
going to. And like, there's part of me that still does it now. I'm like, don't do that. You don't have to. You're going to make more delicious food. But
Yeah.
the relationship came up when I went through my journey of chemo. Was really interesting, because there I was being so healthy, but there was a lot of, you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have this, can't have sugar, can't have dairy, da da da. There was a lot of you can't have, and it brought the teenager out in me. And that relationship, which has taken me now 3 years to really heal and look at, and so it's so important, because, like you say, the relationship with the primary source of food, our sustenance that keeps us going, will play itself out in what is our relationship with others, with family, with work, with our bodies, how we interact with the world. So it is such an important one. I mean, it's really quite a subject.
It's, and what you were saying about, the more don't do this is, the more you wanted to do it. It's like the basic reverse psychology. So the idea of, I guess, looking at things more as like, how am I empowering myself? What do I want to bring more of in, rather than being like, oh no, 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 I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that. It's like this concept of, you want to crowd out the negative things, rather than have this like scarcity mindset that you are not allowed to have all of these different things. So it's okay, if I'm eating too many takeaways, maybe I can bring a meal in that will get rid of one of them. Do you know what I mean? Rather than being like, no, I'm just not going to do it again, and then that's all you want. It's being like, how can you slowly adjust things so that it's easy to do? And I think there's a, especially with like giving up meat, I get this idea. I mean, this, people really push back now. I'm just kind of doing things as I do, and then if the conversation arises, then I deal with it, because I learned very quickly that people all of a sudden go like, no, don't want to hear. But it's this idea of, what difference is going to make if I just don't eat meat for one day of the week? What is the point? But then there's also this thing of like, well, if I'm not going to go vegan, then why should I do anything? Which is also a cop out almost, because it's like, it's not about being vegan. It's not, veganism is a very, very intense, like very structured way of being. And I have nothing against veganism. I struggle with it. It's too regimented. It doesn't allow for me to make any decision of my own. So there's this idea of like, if I'm not going to go full force, why should I do anything? Rather than just being like, just try make a vegetarian meal once a week. See how you feel.
It's adding value to what you're currently doing.
Yeah. Working with what you're doing, rather than trying to change everything.
like it's too difficult to sustain, like you say, and it also just puts up a wall. So, where are you and what little changes can you implement,
Yeah.
and how can you just bring nutrition more in, make a little bit of a change. And then, speaking and going further into that topic, I often with people have said to me, well, how do you get protein if you're only eating plant-based food? How do you get your calcium if you're only eating plant-based food and you don't have dairy? Share your gems with us on that.
Well, I often have a bit of a cynical response to saying like, I mean, you look at all the biggest animals in the natural world, and all of them are herbivores. Um, Elephants, rhinos, hippos, they are gorillas, all of them are sustaining themselves off a plant-based diet. And I understand that we have eaten meat for a very, very long time. My thing is our proportion of the amount of meat we are eating is very out of balance. That's why it's like if someone wants to eat meat once or twice a month, or if it's more than that, that is good. But it's like the dependency on wanting to eat it for every meal and feeling like if we don't, our bones are going to fall apart or something. Like there's this idea that that plants don't hold enough. But I mean, the legume family is just the most phenomenal food source. It is affordable. There are so many different ways you can cook lentils, chickpeas, beans. But there's also this bad rap about them, they're like, oh, beans, like what do I do with that? But it's also the most resilient food crop. We are looking at massive problems with climate change right now. And in the sustainability space, I mean, I'm part of a global network of chefs called the Chefs Manifesto, and it's linking people around the world who are advocating for change in their local contexts. And they've just launched a massive beans campaign to try and double the amount of bean production by 2028 or something. And they are a phenomenal food source, and there are so many recipes out there that you can make burgers and meatballs and stews and soups and dips, and like it's an abundant and very exciting way to cook. But you just have to have the curiosity to go, okay, let's find a recipe. Let's make a burger patty out of black beans rather than mince and see. And also the one thing with legumes is that you will get some stomach noises because they kind of bring in new microbes. So it's one of those food groups that you have to kind of try slowly and see how your body reacts. Some people are like, I can't do chickpeas, but maybe a bean is good, or a lentil. But this is also what happens when you kind of create more awareness around the food that you eat, is you start being able to pick up on subtleties like, oh, I ate that last night and that just didn't feel right, or didn't feel good. Oh, but I ate this tonight and that felt amazing. Or, oh my, I wanted to fall asleep after I ate those slop chips. Why did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. It is just doing it gradually. It's not saying you must do this. Mine was gradual, and I must be honest, I couldn't eat any of the legume family for years because I had such IBS,
Mm.
and I was just like a big balloon that was going to explode. and, um, and then when I went to India and I did a panchakarma, it's a Ayurvedic detox, and it just helps clean out your gut, looks at gut health, and it reset my gut flora. And I came back and I can now eat all the legumes and all the rice, but I do rinse everything. I
Yeah,
do certain legumes I need to soak overnight, but it's quite easy. You could put something in a bowl now, put
yeah,
some water in tomorrow morning, just rinse it, and it's ready to cook for the evening.
yeah.
I did find, yes, chickpeas, no matter what I do with chickpeas in and what, how much I soak it and whether it's organic, I love it, my body doesn't.
Yeah.
Have everything else. So
Yeah.
I must agree with you. And there's a doctor, I did a course with him on plant-based medicine, and Dr. Michael Clapper, phenomenal man. And he started offering a plant-based medicine. He's teaching this to doctors because, as we know, I don't know if a lot of you know, but
Yes.
yeah, he's, if I
Doesn't
could,
make sense.
yeah, amazing. And I mean, doctors, regular doctors, well, actually, my oncologist, I chatted to her, I was like, well, how much time do you spend on nutrition? She said, well, in all the, I don't know, what is it, 14 years of study, 4 hours on nutrition. And you think, but like, surely, how is that logic, translate? What you put in your mouth matters as you believe in the medicine that you're putting in the veins and the mouth. So obviously food, but they completely just negate that. So, and Dr. Clapper speaks, and in one of the lectures, he says exactly what you said. Look at the biggest animals, they are herbivores. Look at their digestion. And a lot of the nutrients are actually absorbed, through the plants.
Yeah.
A lot of the protein exists in the plants. I mean, Dr. Vignesh, who is on here regularly, he says, well, the cows actually have their protein because of the food they eat.
Yeah.
So
exactly, we are essentially using animals to get the source of protein that they are eating, but we're using them rather than just going straight to the source.
yes,
And
yeah.
it's yeah, the idea that doctors don't learn about food is like the most, it's just there was something I learned about Ayurvedic healing, and they said, and I think it's similar with Chinese medicine, and they said the doctors make money when they keep their patients healthy. They don't make money out of sickness. It's preventative. It's not, it's not then reactive and now you deal with sickness. They come and they maintain health. And
Yes.
that's also where this shift in the industry has come from, is people are making a huge amount of money out of us being sick, and then trying to produce as much food as possible for the cheapest prices, and with so many environmental problems and social problems, but it's for, it's to save money and to make a lot of money. I just wanted to answer Charlene's question. So if you can focus on stone ground, unbleached flour, if you're making your own, or if you know good sources of gluten where they use good flour, it's okay. But the thing is, our crops are grown so differently these days, and they are sprayed with so many different things, and they are genetically modified, and so that is definitely where all the intolerances and the sensitivities are coming from, with gluten products. And so maybe it's just to be aware. I mean, if you don't have a sensitivity, maybe just be aware of how much you're eating, or just look at the source of it. Because I mean, I love bread, I love pasta, I love all of these things, but I'm very aware of, you buy like the cake flour snowflake and you're like, it is pure white. That doesn't make sense.
Jig white.
Jig white, literally jig white. So it's just about being like, okay, if I really like this, what other brand can I get? Is it local? Is it the unbleached? The Eureka, I love the Eureka brand of flowers, because you can get the brown, you can get the unbleached, you can get their flour is, it's a really nice product, and it's local. So I would just say, be conscious of how it's made, and then indulge as much as you like. If your body feels like it's enjoying it, then carry on, but just be aware of what is happening to that plant before it's arriving on the plate.
Yeah. And it's the education of just, it's just reversing things, because I think a lot of us grew up where a protein was the main event,
Mm.
and then it was decorated with vegetables,
Yeah.
or garnished with vegetables. Now it's just reversing it, make the decoration the main event, and make the meat that you're choosing a smaller portion.
Yeah.
Just and sometimes it just takes a little bit of a while, because you get, I know people often say to me, well, how do you cook vegetables? I'm like, well, the same love and joy that you cook your meat. Put in that a little bit of effort, like you do with your meat dishes, your chicken, your whatever. Put that
Yeah.
effort into the veggies and to.
Sorry. No, I guess it's also it's a when you're trying to learn something new, it's always going to feel hard. It's always going to feel like, oh, your brain is like misfiring. It doesn't make sense. Like, what do you mean I must do that with an aubergine? Like, I just, put chicken in the oven and let it roast. But it's just about giving it time, like you say, to learn new skills. Like, once you break, you try a recipe and it goes really well. I just saw Paula's little yellow hand on the screen.
To you, definitely.
It's about you're learning a new skill, so it is going to take time. You go through that process of, like, you get excited about something, then it feels like you're not getting anywhere, and then you keep going and you realize that there's a whole world out there, and there's so much that you can do with vegetables in a very, very simple way.
Yeah.
Yes, Paula?
Okay, hi, sorry. I have a question with regards to what you were suggesting before, like the flexitarian regime where you are mainly vegetarian and then now and then you eat fish or meat. Is there any counterindication due to the fact that if you don't eat meat for a long time, your body will stop producing the enzyme and then all of a sudden there is meat? And what does the body do with it? How is that affecting your capacity of assimilating the nutrients if you don't eat it regularly?
I don't know the scientific answer to that, but I think protein goes a lot further than we think. So listen, it's also hard to say because I think everyone's bodies respond differently, but my way of doing that would be to eat, just reduce the amount of meat that you eat and see if you feel any different. It's not like your body is going to give up and stop doing what it needs to do, but you do need to experiment and I guess play with how you feel. All I think about is this like image of like lions that have just hunted in my mind. And you think about how that impacts their bodies. They've got a lot of energy. They have to hunt. They have to get everything done. Then they eat and they want to sleep for about a week. If anything, I think you will feel more energized by not eating the amount of meat that you're eating, or if you reduce it, it'll only have a positive impact. That is a personal opinion that's not, backed by, but there are, a huge amount of athletes out there. There are a huge amount of people out there that actually have had really positive reactions to reducing the amount of meat that they're eating.
Yeah, actually, my question was a bit on the other end of the spectrum because I have become vegetarian.
Yeah.
Then it has occurred to me to be at friends' house, for example, or acquaintances, and there is the meat that you cannot really refuse to eat. So I eat it. And it's not that I get sick, but I was wondering if what is my body bringing home after not having had meat for so long, if
Why do you feel like you can't say no to the meat though?
Well, sometimes for certain meats and fish, I'm strictly no. I would but it happened to me to be in certain situations whereby that was the main meal and the only meal, and these people genuinely didn't know that I was vegetarian, and I didn't want to say, okay, I'm just going to eat 2 carrots, and then you create this, embarrassing thing that it's not really worth it. So I was just wondering if
I think your body, I mean, I think it does, it definitely is going to
assimilate.
Yeah, it's going to, it's the same way, you get used to having something because you have a lot of it, and as soon as you don't, your body gets a bit more sensitive to that. So I mean, I know if I had to maybe eat some meat after a very long time not doing it, I'd probably get a stomach cramp, or I would just not feel. But I think that's just your body. It's lost its ability to process it as easily. So maybe that's all that would happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think, Elaine, you're on mute.
Sorry. So I was thank you. Add to that, Paolo, because I'm not strictly, I'm flexitarian. So 95% of the time I have plant-based. Now and again I have fish, quite enjoy fish. And if I am invited to a braai, which is very rare, it might be once a year, but I might have like a chop or a piece of boerewors. It might taste nice, but my stomach kind of, so I have small amounts now. Definitely the digestive enzymes aren't as practiced, but the truth is I don't think I ever really digested meat very well anyway. So there is an adaptation. So I think, if you find yourself like, if that is the case, and now and again you're going to have it, digestive enzymes help to break it down. But I do find if I've sort of gone off track with my eating, for example, I mean, not in terms of eating meat, but I went out for breakfast yesterday or the day before and dinner, and there were vegan meals, but I'm used to making my own food. I know the next day I need to have a very green, vegetable-based alkaline day, and I think that would be useful. Not
If
a
I
bit
can,
Dealing with it as like a meat hangover, being like, okay, how do you?
Yes.
one more practical thing
Yeah.
is see that out of experience and research, with age, 2 things happen. One of them is acidity in the stomach goes lower, I mean higher, meaning your acidity is not as acidic as you were younger. So from the age of 45, 50, your acidity changes. And with the change of acidity, the activation of certain enzyme that breaks proteins it also changes. So your ability to break certain types of food alter. So what you can do is before any meal, introduce some apple cider vinegar to reduce your acidity. Also, another thing is your bile. Your bile also reduces. If you stop for a while to introduce to your body proteins like meat and fats for meat, then your bile is reduced as well. And when you start eating meat again, it will be hard for the body to kind of kick in again to the same levels of production. And what happens is usually the meat doesn't go through a proper process of digestion, and actually you have problems with cramps and all sorts of other symptoms that could affect. So what you can do is definitely use some bile salts, that could help. So you just take it with your meal, and that will help you digest it. If you choose to kind of like introduce more meat to your meal. Another thing that we all need to remember is that whether it's proteins that come from the plants or from animal products, with age, our need for protein is growing. You need about 30 more percent of protein into your diet in order to kind of like maintain proper health, because your body needs more protein for the functioning of normal functioning that you used to do in the same level before.
Okay.
It's just
That seems like a cruel joke. So as we get older, our ability to process protein diminishes, but we actually need more of it. But maybe that's also
not just that our ability to process it reduces. That's one thing. That's not why we need more protein. It's our body, for the processes that it does, it just needs more protein. So there is a need for the processes of the body, because there's a lot of breakage that happens with age, and so a lot of things that goes that breaks down needs repair, needs more material to rebuild them. And so it's just that, unfortunately, it's kind of like evolutionary. It's just getting older, unfortunately.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. That's excellent. Thank you for that. Okay, so, as we've already opened up the conversation, and we're going to continue, I'd just like to invite anybody who has any questions, really don't be shy, put your hands up, or if you have any other questions, just unmute yourself and let us know. As I continue the conversation with Arabella. So tell me, where are you at now? We're looking forward and moving forward within this year. What are you going to be working on?
Sure. So I have a few days ago just finished a degree, which has taken up a lot of my time this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about that.
I just did my honors degree in sustainable development, which was a very different path from what I've been doing for the last little while, but actually it worked really beautifully to actually inform everything I've been doing for the last little while. And it's really deepened my understanding and my drive of wanting to help educate people about the food that they eat and how to shift the systems that are really in dire straits right now. So I have been focusing on that. But going forward, I am wanting to start offering more of the things that I was doing pre-COVID. And I've got pop-up dining experiences, and I have an idea for a product that is, I don't want to say right now, but it's I guess a friend to have in the kitchen. It's not a book, but it's something that I've been needing to get my recipes out there. And so that is a project that I want to start in the beginning of the year. Because I guess I've got Instagram and I've got all of that, but I don't have something, people go, where can we find this information? And it's like, on the internet, which is terrifying and overwhelming, so that's
I have an idea.
Yeah.
And I think all of you in the house should raise your hand and agree with me, she says before. Next year, you, my darling, I know you live a little far, but we're gonna make a plan, and you're gonna come into my kitchen, and we're gonna have a special with you on Conversations in the Kitchen, and we're gonna share some of the recipes where you can cook. I'll help you prep in the afternoon. We've done each year, I've done that with chefs. So make 2 of your recipes, chat about it, and promote this wonderful idea for the kitchen. So I'm booking you for next year to come to my kitchen on a Thursday evening, so one of the months. So I think I think everybody here would agree. That yes, thank you, Paolo. Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to, do that. There is lots to share, and there's lots of fun to be had cooking in the kitchen,
Yes,
and
great
cooking with
idea. I
other.
love that. Charlene says, and I also think I want to include this more in my retreat, because when I do, especially when I do my retreats, it's very important. The food is as important as the yoga, really. And now people like come as much for the food as they do for the yoga. So that combination of collaboration, I think, would be nice to take further for us, because I mean, I don't know. I'm also photographing all the little meals I make. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but maybe also put it together. But I just love that idea of collaboration, and maybe we do, and we can go more live these days. Thank goodness,
Yeah,
and set up sort
yeah,
of day offerings for people.
yeah.
So there was a message from, yes, a request that the recipes are easy and simple. Absolute,
That
always
is
easy.
what it needs to be. The simplicity is the key.
Yeah, key.
Uh, there's a nice the way that I cook is I try and, you have baseline recipes, and then you have things that you can add to kind of elevate or accessorize meals. So like you don't the basics need to be accessible. That's all I want. If I do a pop-up dining experience, I'm going to spend 3 days prepping those ingredients, and you guys will not know how to cook that. But then there's the other side of the coin, where you have experiences where you want it to be as easy as possible, so that it's exciting and that it lures people in. Otherwise you're not going to be getting anyone into the kitchen. You're going to get everyone a bit overwhelmed. So simple is definitely key for this.
I'm totally with you on that. I actually never used to enjoy cooking until I had to, I suppose. My health brought me to it. So, and I was never very good at following any recipes. So it had to be really, really simple. One of the things I love about the Ayurvedic way of cooking is it really is simple, very few
Yeah.
ingredients, very simple, and but very tasty. So yeah, simplicity is the way to go, Charlene. So there's lots we can share, there's lots I can share as well. So I'm looking forward to that. So that sounds fantastic. I mean, it's just been, I'm like, I just, it makes me want to get into the kitchen with you and like cook up a storm. So we must
We will very soon.
very, very soon. Let's see who's just sent a message. Thank you to so important simplicity. Yes, Lisa, I totally agree. And I'm just always appreciative of you coming on. Those of you that have taken the time to come on and have a listen, even if it gets interrupted, it's always just, it helps me keep this community going, and just that we can share these ideas, and together, I think that's the key. And I think you'll agree with me, Arabella, is that like together we can help each other get healthier. Especially when you feel lost and you feel overwhelmed, or where do you start? I've created this platform so that you can reach out, to Arabella, and I'll make all her details available if she gives me permission, tomorrow morning via email or whatever preference she has. I'm also available at any time, and can link you up and keep the network going, just so that we remember, that health is community, isn't it? Like, if you think about, we've spoken about eating and the joy of eating, a lot of that was like really the gathering, breaking bread, was coming together, sitting at a dining room table. And we maybe might be too busy, but I think coming back to those old values is really important, to just re-implement. I mean, even if we did it just once a week. Part of my upbringing, coming from a Jewish family, was the Friday night dinner was really more about us getting together every week on Friday night and eating together. And so making that something that's of value, that there is the joy that can come back to it. I mean, really, even if it's the simplest of, like, you only have time and you're just sitting together having your avo and delicious toast and whatever it is, but make that time matter. So yeah. Any parting thoughts that you want to just share with us, as we close this off tonight?
I guess to slow down, to take time to cook a meal, to slow down, to be there when you're eating it. I think a lot of the time, we don't get force-fed anything, but technically we feed ourselves and we're unaware of what we're doing a lot of the time. If you had to keep a food journal for a day or two and have to write down everything you eat, I think you'd be quite surprised as to what's going in your mouth compared to what you remember. So just to take time and just to, like you said, try and get it to be higher on the priorities list. Don't eat it in front of a screen. Give yourself half an hour to eat a meal. Enjoy the simplicity of it rather than trying to weave it into the highly complex world that is not allowing us to prioritize it. So and just get cooking, get in the kitchen, play.
Yeah. And and phone a friend, call a friend, do it with some. And what I learned is, and I have some of my best friends, and I do that. They live thousands of miles away, and I mean, we'll get onto Zoom and we'll cook a meal together and speak about what we're putting in and make the meal, and do what you can. Let technology bring us together, connect us, as opposed to separate us. Make the best out of it. But I love your philosophy. Absolutely, it's that slowing down. And then Charlene added to it. It's very easy to go into mindless munching, and I do that. I have to actually, pay attention and then reel it in and, like, hold on, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's not saying have a halo on your head and be like totally conscious 24/7. It's impossible. But, like, what if we did like 10 minutes more of consciousness and conscious eating, handling of food? That would make quite a difference.
Well, also the idea that being conscious is tiring is also like this idea of all these mindless things that we are doing in our day. It's like, it's beautiful being able to be present and doing what you're doing. And also by doing that, this is I guess the yogic philosophy too. And that's where yoga and Ayurveda really can transform a relationship with food, is if you are here while your body is eating something, that is going to create a lot more benefits from the food, for how you feel, for your mind space. It's going to have a lot of positive effects. Whereas if you are somewhere else and you're eating something, there's that, your body's not going to digest things in the same way. So it's just being where you are and just enjoying the moment for what it is, and then carrying on with your day.
Absolutely. I love that. That's a beautiful, beautiful sort of thoughts to just be left with and to work on, and 5 minutes extra a day is going to give you a lot more value and then just building up on that. One of the things that just reminded me of, and I wanted to share because it was it was quite a unique experience, although so simple and so so old was when I was in India, and I was did my teacher training, one of my teacher trainings. At the ashram, we had to sit in silence and eat in silence, which was beginning. It was like giggly and awkward, but quite a thing. And a lot of us have families, and I know you're busy, but if you give yourself, even if it is just that snack, but it's, take yourself somewhere quiet, take yourself away from a screen, take yourself away from your phone, put your phone away, don't put it on the table, and just sit there and quietly eat your food and taste the food and the texture, and make it a 5-minute ritual. It really gives you a profound sort of connection to the nourishment and the prana that's going in. So I want to just again open up. Is anybody wants to have any last minute questions or comments before we sort of come to a close this evening? Everybody seems quite happily satiated, I think, as I look at your faces and smiles. So Arabella, a huge thank you from me. It's been so divine to speak to you. I am really excited about November now. Every time we speak, we both have said we could speak for hours, so I can feel there'll be a lot more collaborations that will happen in the future and next year. So thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time this evening. And if I could share your details with everybody, just as pleasure, Charlene, you can just put it into the chat or send it to me on WhatsApp, and I'll share it with everybody. If anyone doesn't have my cell phone number, it is in the chat. So Paolo, please just write it down, and then I can share that. So
I've just put my Instagram there because if there are any recipes that I put out, they'll generally be on there, and we can stay in touch on that platform. But it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful chatting to you and chatting to you all about these really important and exciting topics. So I look forward to cooking together in person in November.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Go and have a good evening, and I look forward to connecting with you. And to everybody else, thank you for joining me this evening. Please stay tuned to Conversations in the Kitchen. We have a wonderful guest for November, a whole different topic on health. I'll keep you in suspense and give you more details next week. And please go onto my new YouTube channel. It's Fusion Vinyasa Yoga presents Conversations in the Kitchen. It's FVY presents Conversations in the Kitchen. Lots of recordings. So thank you, Arabella. Thank you, everybody. Go and have a
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Bella.
Bye.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye.
Ciao.
ciao.